What is good, y'all? It's your boy, Victor Allen, aka Cine Hero, aka Pragmatic, and I'm here with you with a behind the scenes sneak peek. Not a sneak peek. It's not a sneak peek because if you're watching this thing, you can get the full video. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you've seen it before it comes out. But anyways, I'm giving y'all a behind the scenes look into the making of John Oliver. If you saw the previous video, I dove into working on the beat, actually composing it, building a structure, what I did after Lawrence sent me his takes, which was just like take pieces away, bring some other elements in, and just like really amplify the whole piece and just like blending it together. But now I'm gonna go into actually how I dove into MC BKLYN's, did I say Lawrence earlier? Oops. MC BKLYN's actual vocals. So what I'm gonna do is start up my screen record after I get John Oliver project pulled up. But I just want to say it's good to be here with y'all. It's good to see you. Hope all is well, you know what I'm saying? Hope you've been safe. Hope you've been having fun, you know what I'm saying? Doing your thing. Just living, thriving, and being the best that you can be. Alright, so John Oliver, open that Logic project. Alright, loading, pending, thinking, contemplating, pondering, and we up. Alright, bet. So it's up. I'm going to go ahead, Command Shift 5, and hit record. And let's get it. Alright, bet. Swipe that over. And cool. Alright, so when last left off, I was diving into the beat. Here we go. I was like, what happened? I'm tripping, y'all. I'm goofy. I forgot to turn on my interface first. I thought I turned my interface on, but I turned it off. Alright, bet. So interface is on. Audio should be coming out of these speakers now. There we go. Bet. Alright, smooth. And with the vocals, which I just have them muted, here we go.
Really tough prep last week, but tonight we ballin', bro. I'ma have to call John. Hey, Johnny Ali about to spaz, quit my job to get the bag. I'm on riches on my rags, to my L's I'm bouncing back. I'm not cookie cutter, I'm a crackin', we can clash and get it crackin'. Home slamming, so they snapping, I be snapping. Young go to 23.
Yes, sir. All right, bet. Cool. So it started, and y'all, we went through this, but it started it started with the snippet from John Oliver.
That have mentioned to me. And to be honest, that kind of feels like a personal slight. You know what's an easy name to write?
And so when I'm going into working on vocals, first thing that I usually do, usually, is actually go through and EQ things. But I've recently acquired a few more plugins. Not recently, but maybe over the last year or so. I've acquired a few more plugins, and some of my favorite plugins for working and cleaning up vocals that come from different recording backgrounds come from Isotope. And so Isotope has this one called Rx7 Voice Denoise. And so what it does is it takes a sound profile of the audio, and at a certain threshold, everything below it, it minimizes and takes out just like the noise level, the noise floor. And so that's what I did here. I set my threshold, set the reduction. I didn't want it to be too much to like kind of compress the vocals too much in a sense, because yes, while it's denoising, it's actually also acting on the vocals themselves, not just the noise, because as great as like technology can be, there's still margin for error. So I set the reduction so it wasn't too much, and the threshold just so it pick up, and yeah, then I moved into the De-Esser. So Lawrence's MC BKLYN's vocals had a little bit of sibilance, and it was like, no, that's sibilance right there. And so what I did was found the points in the audio. Let's see if I can find one now. It has
Just like I'm the best and I'm rounding up all the haters who doubted us, yeah.
Alright, cool.
She said I'm still, so she...
Perfect. So if y'all notice where the attenuation, this marker was, is it dropped down in the red, that's where, and also where I set the frequency band to detect, that's where it began to compress and lower the harshness and the hiss of those S's in that sibilant. So keep watching.
Still, so she wanna cuff. Quarantine body, yeah, I'm really buff. There's no need to act if you really tough. Prep last week, but tonight we ballin', bro. I'ma have to call.
And it's also kind of like those T's, because like when you say T, T, if you do it enough or do it in a certain way, you'll get that kind of hiss, that whistle. So it's primarily with the S's and the T's, and this is delayed, so that's why you're not seeing the attenuation happen exactly when the vocal is being activated. But yeah, the second thing I did was go through and add a De-Esser. So first I had Rx7 Denoise, then I had the De-Esser, and the De-Esser is actually a Waves plugin I got in the gold vocal pack. I saved up and I got a vocal pack from Waves because, you know, they've been around for a good while. I was able to work with their plugins when I took my music production course at Davidson College, Music 311, and yeah, I really enjoyed being able to work with that toolbox, that tools kit. So I was like, let me keep that toolkit with me everywhere I go. So went and got invested in my music making capacity as an audio engineer. Next thing I went and did was actually take out, and this is a subtractive EQ. So I took out some of the harshest points that had a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of blah, 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 blah. This is what I'm thinking. Ooh, a lot of resonance. There we go, resonance. A lot of resonance. So I'm not sure exactly where MC BKLYN was recording, but each room has its own sound profile in terms of the resonances, where sounds and how sounds build up in the room. So specifically for his vocals, I found them at 220 hertz, 490 hertz, 1150 hertz, and 7500 hertz. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and show you what looking for these points look like. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna deactivate these others. I'm gonna turn them back on, but first I'm gonna deactivate this.
Hey, Johnny Yali about to spaz. Quit my job to get the bag. I'm on riches on my rags. Took my L's, I'm bouncing back.
Now when I activate it,
I'm cracking, we can clash and get it cracking, poem slamming. So
you may not hear a big difference, but let me raise it up, and then you'll hear how it's working.
Slamming, so they snapping, I be snapping. Young goat at 23, dog, I feel like Mike. Got on stage, changed my life when I grabbed the mic.
So if you hear that, that's part of the resonance that's in the room from his vocal. So I identified, and all I did was just go back and forth, scanning through, trying to find it. And once I did find where it was the most resonance and most intense, then I lowered it.
Take your girl and make her better, homie. I just might. One for all my G's, spread the wealth with all my mic, Brooklyn.
And like I said, you may not hear it just off the rip listening to the vocal, but those are things you have to search for and look for when you're editing vocals. And once you find it and you reduce it or take it out, it makes all the difference. Mixing and music production is a sum of all these little things that add up to make this one large intricate piece. It may not be intricate, but this one large piece. And so the sum and the difference of all these things you add up and subtract prior to the equal sign gives you your sum, gives you your balance, gives you what you're left over with. So this EQing, like I said, this is primarily subtractive EQing because all of these are reducing what's going on in the audio profile. I did that as the third step. After the subtractive EQ, I went ahead and added some additive EQ. Specifically with the, excuse me, this is the, I didn't fart, excuse me, I said. And we're back. Alright y'all, so ran out of space on my SD card. I'm going to pull John Oliver back up and continue to go through the plugins that I was using, that I used for John Oliver. So when we last left off, we're talking about subtractive EQ, and also I'm going to re-engage the screen record so y'all can see what I'm talking about. Command Shift 5 and hit record now. Dope. Swipe that away. Yeah. And last left off, I was talking about Subtractive EQ, and for the main vocal, I was using Channel EQ, stock plugin with Logic, taking out frequencies and resonances that are just in the room. The next thing I did was go in and add more of an additive EQ, and this was to go back and give full body and a full sound to the vocal. And so I'm going to turn this additive EQ off, and this EQ is a Focusrite Red 2 EQ. And I'm going to turn this EQ off just so you can hear what it sounds like without it. Now I'm going to turn it on.
Young goat at 23, dog, I feel like Mike. Got on stage, changed my life when I grabbed the mic. Take your girl and make her better, homie, I just might. One for all my G's, spread the word with all my mic, bro.
So it took... That's the feedback from one of the other plugins. But yes, as far as this additive EQ, it gave the body back to the vocal that I took away with the Subtractive EQ. And you'll see I have a low shelf, a low mid, a high mid, and a high shelf. And the low mid and high mid are more parametric EQs, and you can adjust how tight or wide the bands are, or like the Q value, as you'll see on some other in some other DAWs, digital audio workstations. But yeah, I went in and I just heard and listened and just played around as far as like listening back to where the level sounded best. And also I do my listening on different or as many different playback devices as possible. So the speakers that I have, the actual device that I work on, a set of headphones, and off the phone itself to make sure across all or as many devices as possible that I have in my reach, that I can make sure the fidelity sounds clear and is translated from in the box. I'm kidding. In the box to whatever device I play back on. Next thing I did after this EQ was a compressor. And so I have two compressors here. I'm a fan of chain compression now. I got put onto that a while back. And chain compression because I don't want one compressor overworking too hard so you hear the work that it's doing. You hear the work that it's putting in, which may be a style that you want, but for me it was not. That's not what I was seeking to do. I wanted this compressor to do what it did, and I'll show you what it looks like on the visually with the graph. It's reacting very fast to catch those transients. And the second compressor is coming back to catch those transients as well, but to make sure that each fast rapping vocal is brought to a similar level. And so that's why I have two compressors working back to back instead of one compressor with a really high ratio, but two compressors around the same ratio, not the exact same ratio, but around the same similar attack time and a similar-ish release time. But again, this is all by your ears and when it comes to your mixing. And yeah, after that I went and added a direction mixer, and I made the vocals straight in the center mono. So I know that there was going to be a lot of space in this song, and I wanted the vocal to remain center so it could be the center of attention, the center of focus. And so I used a direction mixer to, instead of spread it out, make it more center so it could be the focus, whether you have you're playing it back on a center or on a mono device or a stereo sound system. So the vocal will always be in the forefront of the song, in the song. Excuse me. Additionally, moving on to like the supportive tracks here, I have different plugins, and these are more to add texture and just like my own flavor to it. And I'll get into like seasoning, what that means a little bit later. But I added my flavor with some distortion. I don't always do this, but sometimes I put reverb directly on the track instead of sending that track to a bus with reverb, because I just want that whole track to have that essence of that space to it. And so, you know, balancing out your dry and your wet mix of that. And this is a stock Logic distortion. Moving on, oh, excuse me, I skipped over the buses that I did send the main vocal to, which was one, my reverb bus, And so I have just the silver verb here, and you'll notice that the pre-delay is around 33 milliseconds, and the pre-delay is delayed than hitting immediately. So this gives it a sense of actually being in a room that's kind of larger than whatever room was recorded in. So the pre-delay allows for the vocal to hit and then for the reverb to come in later. And you can adjust the size, you can adjust the dry wet however you want. I also added the compressor because didn't want my reverb to level off too immediately. I want it to be brought up, kind of normalized, and then I can level it off by adjusting the volume or the gain of this whole track itself. And I added my echo after the reverb and after the compressor, the compression, because I kind of wanted the reverberated sound to be echoed, not necessarily the echo to be reverberated. And that's something you can hear better than me explaining. So it won't be easily translated to here, but give it a try in your own mixing sessions and you'll notice a difference. Also, with this reverb and with this track, I spaced it out without a direction mixer because I want the reverb to be in the atmosphere, to fill the space, the surrounding area, not center, not frequency masking or clashing with the vocal, but to be around you and fill up the space. So that's what I did here. The next track that I sent this to, the next bus I sent this to, was just a parallel compression track. And I do this from time to time when I really want the vocal to be prominent. And so this is just sending the vocal to another track that has a higher ratio. You know, this one's close to 8. Oh, this is a 6.6. And so this just reinforces the vocal. And so you have the vocal, but the vocal kind of behind itself, making sure that it sits on top of the beat and it's heard clearly. And then I just put a light EQ on top of the compressor to take out the lows, take out a little bit of that high mid frequency, just so it doesn't over reinforce a specific frequency and again create resonance, which we don't want in that vocal. So I did parallel compression, but I EQ'd that compressed vocal itself. And like I said, going back to the other tracks, they all have their own different aesthetics to it. This one specifically has Crush. This is a plugin made by Trilla, and this was just to give some bite to the sound. So you'll hear that here. Also have an amplifier. This is a stock Logic amplifier with some distortion. The tremolo sends it left and right, and then a range shifter just to give it a little more like grit and texture to it as well. The range shifter can be too overwhelming if you don't use it in what's the way I'm looking to say this, sparingly. If you don't use it sparingly, it can be overwhelming. So you got to play around with and fine tune the knobs for sure. As I keep moving on, because it didn't clear that much space on my SD card, the other tracks also have just similar things in terms of adding texture to it. This is another just EQ, just regular EQ track, but this one has a little vocal bending to it. Just to give it some other texture off to the side, and this one's panned off to the left. This next track right here, it's more of that telephone vocal. I have a high pass filter that takes off a lot of the lows up to like 735 hertz, and then a low pass filter that takes out the highs around 9,200 hertz or 9.2 kilohertz. And that's just something that I have also spread out, so it's not centered, but it fills the atmosphere of the composition. And on this last track here, I have this little radiator by Sound Toys. Yes, it was Sound Toys. Apologize for not clearing enough space on my SD card to make a full video all the way through. Things just didn't happen that way. Hope y'all enjoyed this segment. One thing I wanted to mention was that when it comes to the mixing and seasoning, and I don't call it mastering anymore, because mastering, one, the idea of a master over something, over that. Two, I don't feel I can truly master a song, because there are certain skill sets that I may have up to that point in time that I use to the best of my ability, But then as I mature and progress in time, I can look back and say, I could have done X, Y, Z to improve it or add on to it. So I call it seasoning, not mastering, because there are different seasonings that you can add to a song and different skill sets that you have at that moment to pour into that song and at that point in time. So I don't call it mastering anymore, I call it seasoning. But yeah, hope y'all enjoyed this. I hope it gave y'all more insight into literally how we built John Oliver from nothing. It's really just started as an idea. Lawrence had the idea back in 2020, shared it with me, and we took it from there, had a whole game plan with it. If you ask nice enough, we might be able to even show you the whole Google Doc behind the planning of it. But no, you're like, we really just took an idea and just brought it to life. And you can do the same thing, like for real, just make it happen. Like, no excuses, do all that you can with all that you have. And even if it's not to the same capacity or the same caliber, you're building up to it, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. And then when you are afforded the opportunity to go hard in that space, you will already be prepared to do so. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to go check out the rest of the behind the scenes content where we take y'all into the filming process in Charlotte, in Atlanta, in Hawaii. And yeah, hope y'all enjoy it. Stay tuned for more, because there's so much more music and content on the way. Go forth and prosper. Catch y'all on the flip side. Pragmatic, Center Hero, Victor Allen, out. Oh! This is Trilla G ENT. Ain't nobody doing it like we do.